There are more people in prison here in the United States than in any other place in the world. What does it mean to be a prisoner? What does it mean to have a family that's not in prison? Stay tuned. This is going to be a very powerful Christian experience. Hi, my name is Father Mike Manning. God bless you very much. We have a great program for you today, one that I think is really going to touch your heart and challenge you about what it really means to be a follower of Jesus in a practical way here in our world today. And that's what this program is about, making sure that Jesus just isn't that church experience or something that was negative in the past, but it's an experience of God loving you and caring for you, even when things get difficult. We got a special guest today, Norma. God bless you. Thank you very much for coming and being with us.
Thanks for having me.
The connection happened through Sister Pat, who works with us here. She heard you talk in church. You were giving a presentation about this program about Get on the Bus and caring for children, and she said, whoa, we got this great lady. Let's see if we can have a guest and have her share with us what your story is. Could you explain what goes on in what went on in your life?
Well, many years ago, I was in a very abusive relationship. I couldn't really see my way out of that. I wasn't reaching for anything. I didn't have anything. I just focused my whole existence on this relationship and what was going on in this relationship.
Was it only verbal or was it physical?
No, it was physical and verbal.
I think there was a little added reality of being pregnant. Are you with me on this?
Yes. After living that way for about 2 years, I made some very, very bad choices, and I was convicted of second-degree murder. I was offered a deal, a manslaughter, which I refused to take. Having a little boy, a little baby at the time, it was just a chance. There was that little glimmer that I could possibly be with my son, and so I had to take that chance, and so I didn't take the deal. And I was ultimately convicted of second-degree murder.
How long were you sentenced for?
19 years to life.
I hate the question, but what was going on in your mind when you heard that sentence being said?
Just disbelief. My dad was there. I'll never forget the look on his face, and the thought that I am at the lowest point of my life and any life. I mean, looking at it from the outside, I was sentenced to not having a date. Just a lifer is a life prisoner without a date. And I was going to go to some place, and I was very scared. You hear the stories about prison, you watch the movies about prison, and yes. I was at the worst point that anyone could be at.
What was the age of your son when you were convicted?
He wasn't even a year old.
So you're facing the fact that you're going to be separated from your son that you bore in your womb for 9 months and then nurtured for a year, and now this was a separation. We're living in a world now that I think things have changed a little bit in terms of abuse that's happening, verbal and physical, but especially physical, that a flag can be waved and that things can be stopped and they can be changed. But Let's get a little bit into this painful situation of living in prison. Tell me a little bit about the highs and the lows that you experienced when you moved into this prison situation. What are some of the greatest difficulties that you faced? Of course, you're talking about fear, and we can understand that. Tell me about the difficulties in your heart that were perhaps most tender.
As a young person, I had a lot of anger and a lot of sadness and a loss. At that time, no one with my sentence was getting out of prison, period.
So the rest of your life,
that's what I thought.
You were going to be gone.
Right. And so I started looking outward and we'll look at her and look at this person and look at that person and sort of focusing on everyone else and feeling sorry for myself, really. And that I didn't deserve this, and what about me? And I didn't have a lot of faith or God in my life at the very beginning. I was just trying to deal with what I was in and missing my son terribly.
Wow.
It was terrible.
How often were you able to see your son?
My dad would come bring my son to visit me every other week. So as you can imagine.
That ain't very much for a young mother who has a son who's only 1 year old. Every other week was the extent of it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
But at least I had that. I looked forward to those every other week, and I anticipated those, and I looked forward to being able to see him and hold him and smell him and touch him.
How long did you spend in jail?
18 years.
18 years in jail. Norma, wow. The heart of your life, the greatest thing that was going. Tell me a little bit more about your experience of Jesus and this prison experience. We hear of sometimes a lot of, oh, they were in jail and they found Jesus in jail. And I know that because I have a prison ministry myself. Did you find Jesus? Was there a source of support and love that you were able to experience from Christ?
Well, my parents are very devout, so Catholic. I always had religion in my life. I always knew Jesus, and I have always known that. I have not always been open to him, but he has certainly always been there for me. While I was there, I saw my son at visiting, and it just, I was looking at him one day and I thought that I have just destroyed this child's life. And I asked God to help me. What can I do? How can I go forward from here? Look at where I'm at. I'm never going to get out. I've created a horrible situation for this young, innocent child. Where do I go from here? And the answer was that, you know what? One person can make a difference. And maybe I should try to be that one person in my son's life, even though I can't be the mom in the original or the typical mother of being home and giving her child cookies and being there. I can't be that mom, and I had to mourn that. But after that, I looked around and I asked God to help me to see what can I do, though? What am I able to do?
What possibilities are there?
Yes. Can I offer something? Because if I believe, like God has told me that every life has value, then that's me as well. So where is my value and how does that play and what can I do to make a difference in my son's life?
So you can make a change. Each person has a light. When you talk about being a light in the midst of darkness, you could be that candle of light in the midst of the struggle that your son was going through. Yeah.
And it was a darkness. He came to a darkness to see his mother, and how could I make that better? How could I do something about that? How could I make that just not be visiting the darkness?
All right, you've posed the question, and we're going to be coming back in just a second. I want to get the answer to that. I want to see that light, and I want to see that hope that you have brought after 18 years of a hell, to experience something very beautiful and alive and enriching for other people. Stay tuned. Listen to this message, but we're going to be right back. I'm excited to tell you that I have a very special Christmas gift for you. It's a gift that you can purchase and you can be able to give to the young people that you know, perhaps your children, your grandchildren, or even friends. It's a story that I wrote about a little girl by the name of Anna. Anna is a person who is filled with Christmas joy, and it's in connection with her mother giving birth to her little baby brother. In the midst of the story, Anna wants to become a mother too. And yet, in the beauty of Christmas, what happens is she is able to understand that every time she gives love and care to the people of her family and to her friends, Christ is born and Christmas becomes a reality throughout the year. It's filled with wonderful illustrations telling the story of a young girl who experiences the power of bringing Christ, and there's a place in this book for these little people to be able to share their own drawings and images. It's aimed for about 6 years and older, and we're hoping that you're going to be sharing this with many young children. We're going to be asking you if you would give this gift for your gift of $7 or more. This will enable us to get the message of Anna out to many people, but also help us here in our ministry to be able to pay the bills and get things going in an even more and more effective way. Thank you very much for thinking of Anna, and I know you're going to be charmed, you're going to be thrilled, and you're going to be deeply touched by the beauty of experiencing this little girl touching Christmas and touching the life of Christ in a beautiful way. Please make sure this is something that you get to share with those you love. Norma, you're telling a very, very poignant and very tender, yet at the same time very painful story. Very, very painful story. A very dark story, if you will. But you're talking to me about light right now, and you're saying that while you were in prison and you're praying to God, a light started to move in your heart with a sense of hope. Are you with me on that? Mm-hmm. Tell me about the hope that you were able to bring into your life and into the life of your son.
Well, I thought about my son's life a lot and what it must mean to him to have this like stigma, somewhat of a secret, that his mom is in prison and that he's visiting her. And I talked to a lot of different people, and I made sure that my heart was open to what other people had to say. That was other women prisoners, family members, friends, lifelong friends. I asked God to really keep my heart open. And in talking to my son, I learned that he could actually learn something by coming to prison to visit his mom. And a lot of times what I got out of my son and my conversations with him was that he really learned the true value of family. He learned...
Isn't that fascinating?
It is.
It sounds like it's really kind of out of nowhere, huh?
It's right, and sometimes family's not fun, and it's not comfortable, and it's not video games and fun stuff, but sometimes it's being there for your family that comes first over sometimes your own comfort.
We spoke before the program started about that that point, and let's hang into that with regard to being faithful in the ministry and filled with hope, even when things don't seem to have much outward sign that there's a change. People that come to jail and or prisons and start to try to be an influence and bring goodness, nobody cares, and so it's very easy to give up and not to return. Tell me a little bit about your reaction to that, of people who perhaps are overwhelmed with the difficulties that can be involved with dealing with people in prison.
I believe that prison ministry is a very difficult ministry, but I also believe that by staying consistent is what you really want to do. People ask me, I go to the juvenile halls and I don't see any difference. I don't feel like I'm making a difference. The kids, they're the same. They're not letting me in. They're not telling me anything. And my answer to them is, they've heard this before. This is what's happened to them. Words don't mean a lot. What means a lot is consistency. Being present. Being present for them and keep coming back, and boundaries.
What do you mean boundaries?
Boundaries by, these are the rules, this is how far I'm going to go, I love you, and this is my boundary. Yes. And that is the best thing for any prison ministry. And consistency, and keep coming. Without the volunteers who came in to the prison, I would not be a quarter of the person that I am today. Wow. Were it not for the many countless and thankless, I'm sure, people who continually were in my life.
Two things. I want to talk a little bit about your son a little bit more, but then I want to talk about this get on the bus, which is the thing that you're really passionate about as a way of being able to reach out, especially to mothers that are struggling with this separation from family and children. How's your son doing with regard to now what's going on?
He's doing great. He's actually was just promoted to corporal. He's 20, and he was in Afghanistan.
Oh my!
Yes, he came back. He's okay though. He's fine.
That's all you need for another heartache, huh?
I
to
know,
have your son go
right?
off to Afghanistan.
But he's very sharp, and he has a lot of strength. It's unbelievable, that kid.
I can believe there must be
a
real solid bond between the two of you. That's very real and good, huh?
It is. I'm very, very proud of him.
Now, tell me about this. Okay, you're getting out of jail, but you have all these memories, and you have a practical memory too. You know what works and what doesn't work. You've become very much involved in a thing called Get on the Bus. Could you tell us a little bit about this passionate dream that you have, or reality that you have?
Well, one of the volunteers that I just spoke of was a nun named Sister Suzanne Jabro. And she had a group called WOW, Women of Wisdom. And I met her there, and we became friends for many years. And so after I was out, she asked me to come work at Center for Restorative Justice Works, which is Get on the Bus, as a little kind of part-time little job. And that was the beginning. And so I went with her and started working there, and as time went on, I moved over to Get on the Bus, and now I am the coordinator for the San Bernardino area for Get on the Bus.
Wow, hello. What is Get on the Bus? I mean, the local bus, is that what you mean, the local bus?
No, this is not a local bus.
Okay.
This is a bus, a big charter bus that takes kids from all over the state to visit their mothers and their fathers in prisons all across the state for Mother's Day and Father's Day.
Now, this is important to remember, that when you're convicted, it isn't necessarily the judge says, well, let's try to get you a place close by your family so everything can be comfortable. Right. A lot of times the separation is quite a distance. Are you with me on this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so this is what this is trying to overcome, the separation of family from mothers and fathers that are a great distance away and just can't have visitors.
And a lot of times what happens when parents go to prison, the kids are separated from each other sometimes, and other times grandparents have to step in, and they can barely take the child to school, and they have a lot on their plate. So that's where we come in. We want to help the families. We want to reconnect people. We don't want to tear anyone apart. We want these kids to know that we love them so much. Their communities and the churches in their communities, they're the ones putting the funding into this. They're making the travel bags for the kids. They're the ones putting the dinners together for these kids so that they have such a nice time that day. And the kids are treated like rock stars. So that stigma, that secret that I know all too well, that it goes away for a day. And they remember that day, and they know that these volunteers have come together for them. And they're showing them a very Christian way to live in loving our neighbor and being present for our neighbor and supporting our neighbor. Not when times are good, but when times are bad. When your mom's gone, that's when we want to lift you up.
We don't think too much about that with regard to the great number of people who are in prison. We're concentrating on those that are in prison and forgetting that the greater majority, the vast numbers, are those that are outside. And that, as you said, they're separated from their mother, their father. They're separated from brothers and sisters, and the pain is very acute. And oftentimes, if the father is there, and the father is the breadwinner, hello, the burden on the rest of the family and society is very acute and very painful. Are you with me on that?
Yes, absolutely. And children can suffer in all kinds of ways. Emotional, in their studies, they can't concentrate. There's all these things going on, and a lot of times they don't have anyone to talk to about what's going on, and that, I think, is the worst.
One of the director, Father Sony, was telling us the story of just recently hearing of an 11-year-old boy who was being bullied by his classmates because a member of his family was in jail, and he committed suicide when he was 11 years old. You know? Wow, that highlights a very, very acute problem and something that's very, very difficult to deal with. You know? Tell me a little bit about you had Sister Jabro that was able to give you support, but when you get out of jail, even though there was an injustice that seemed to happen in your heart, and the pain was very acute, oftentimes you're alienated and you're estranged very much from the family and from society by not being able to get work and be able to live. Are you with me on that?
Yes, absolutely. There are not enough resources for people getting out of prison. And there's also that question on applications if you've ever been convicted of a crime. So you're reliving, and you do your time, but yet it still follows you.
You still can't get away with it. We're going to come back in just a moment. I want to bring in the people that have been asking for prayers. I want to pray for them, but I also want to pray for you. I want to pray for your son, and I want to pray for all the people that are struggling with the reality of prison, both in prison and the families that are out. Okay? Stay tuned. We're going to be praying for you and for those that you love. I'm very excited to share with you a wonderful gift, a wonderful Christmas gift that you can send to the little people in your world. Be you parents, be you friends, being grandparents. It's a wonderful book, and it's called Anna's Special Christmas. It's filled with wonderful illustrations telling the story of a young girl who experiences the power of bringing Christ to be born into the world, not just on Christmas, but throughout the year. And there's a place in this book for these little people to be able to share their own drawings and images. Please, give a look at this, would you? Give a look at the possibilities. We're asking that you would send a donation of $7 or more in order to pay for this and also to allow us to continue our ministry. Please, don't miss this opportunity. Remember, Anna's special Christmas. Norma, it's been a real joy speaking with you. The joy of the ministry, though, is that it's not only the joy of being able to talk to you, but we're able to connect with a lot of people around the world and throughout the country. And the joy is that they share with us their prayer intentions. All of this is people that have written to us and that have phoned us and emailed us and gotten in touch with what goes on. So could we spend some time with prayer? And we're going to pray for you and too. But here, I wanted to mention just some of these. Dora is from California. She wants to pray for her son, Rudy. Virginia in North Carolina. Let's see. She mentions 3 of her children that they'll be able to know and to serve the Lord. She's concerned about a mother that will grow. Debbie from Texas. She's struggling with depression. I bet you could relate to that, huh? Mm-hmm. Ooh, And here we go from Pennsylvania, Judith. She's in a hospital, and pray for her recovery and a quick return. Bring your hands, would you? And let's just lay this right here, and we'll just, Lord, I ask a special blessing on Norma. Continue to confirm in her your deep love for her, that as you work the miracles of what's happening now, it gives her peace and joy, and bless her son. And may her son always know the greatness of her mother, and may the bond between the two of them be continually deepening and blessing, and may great things happen. But now we pray, Lord, also for Dora and Virginia, and we pray for Debbie. We pray for all of you, no matter what's going on in your life, with the deep belief that prayer makes a difference. God has said we should pray, but I have confidence, Lord, that you are going to be able to hear healing coming into the depression, into the hospital situation, into the abuse that's going on in many people's lives. Come, Lord, bring your peace, bring your justice, bring your goodness, and stir in the hearts of many people to be more involved with those that are in prison and out of prison. And may Jesus' love for you always make you smile.